Leo Riot is suing Apex Trader Funding. Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Forrest. I'm a day trader. I invest in stuff, and I think that everybody should too. In today's video, I'm going to break down this lawsuit as well as give you my thoughts on what might happen next. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the short version of this is that according to the lawsuit, okay, this is all allegedly, this is an ongoing lawsuit, by the way, okay? But according to the claim, and I'm gonna pull it up, I've actually downloaded all of the legal documents and I've read them top to bottom, okay? I've actually read the entire thing. They aren't that long, read them. But according to the lawsuit, Leo Riot developed some software. There was a licensing agreement with Apex, and they were supposed to give 33% of net profits to Leo Riot's company, which is called, KSAR Spendthrift Trust. Interesting name. That's the short version of it. And then allegedly, Apex, after discontinuing their relationship with Leo, continued to use the software and modify the software, which was directly against what is allowed in the licensing agreement. So I'm going to point out some of the primary components of this licensing agreement, and I'll give my thoughts on what I think might happen. This is a new type of video for me. Also, I'm not a legal expert. I want to make that very, very clear. Okay, this is just my thoughts as a trader. Obviously, I've been promoting and using Apex Trader Funding for a very long time. I have to say, whatever the outcome, I want justice to be served. Whether they win or lose, I'm going to support whatever outcome happens, right? According to the law. First and foremost, doesn't matter what my business relationship may or may not be with Apex. If they owe somebody money and they got to pay, they got to pay. Yeah, so let's go ahead and just take a look at this court case. All right, so we are recording here. This is the software license agreement. Then we'll actually look at the complaint first. I'm going to start in this order because it's going to make a lot more sense so we don't have to go back and forth. So bear with me here. Okay, so this is page 1 of 14. If you're unfamiliar with what a software license agreement is, essentially it is an agreement on how and when you can use software. It's actually a document, a legal binding document that tells you everything about how you get to use a piece of software. So why do they exist? Here's a very simple way to use it. Basically, if I write some code and you use it and other people use it, I own that code, right? It's actually my software. I've developed it regardless of whether I'm charging you or not, right? If I'm not charging you, that's fine, but I still retain ownership over that code. And at any point in time, because I own that code, I can decide to charge you or change whatever the agreement is, okay? So in professional context, where money is being made, almost in all cases where money is being made, that's where these agreements are really, really important. If money isn't on the table, people don't really care as much, though that's not always the case. Okay, very often, if money isn't being made, there might be agreements that say that money can't be made. You'll see that in the open source world. But in this case, the software was designed explicitly for business services. All right, so money was always on the table. Was there gonna be net profit or not? Who knows? But that's really what the software license agreement was outlined, okay? So the name of the company is KSAR Spendthrift Trust, and I'm gonna control F to 33%. So fees and taxes. This is a really important section. It says, in consideration of the rights and services granted to licensee under this agreement, licensee agrees to pay to licensor the following fees in accordance to the payment terms set forth in this agreement. The license fee. The license fee shall be 33% of Apex's net profits, if any, as determined by Apex, which shall be determined and paid out on a monthly basis, subject to certain holdbacks that relate to the normal operation of the Apex business, including without limitation any potential holdbacks and reserves related to client payoffs, business need, present or future, regulation and merchant reserve requirements, funding of risk capital, and margin for live prop fund accounts. So basically it said, pay me after you've paid everybody else net profits. That's the short TLDR of that. Why would you write something like that? It makes sense. You want to create an agreement that is beneficial to both parties. So there's two ways to charge. You could charge off of gross revenue, which is before you pay everybody else. I want top line. Okay, that's basically top line agreement. Or after you've calculated your net profit, you're using my software to make money, I want 33% of net profits after you've paid everybody else. So basically they are the last in line to get paid. You can do whatever you want in the world, okay? There are standards in place, but ultimately whatever you sign is what works in the business. So that's the first thing. And basically the lawsuit says that this didn't happen. Okay, so let's go and look at the complaint. The rest of this is pretty standard stuff. Okay, we can look at the payment terms really quick. Payment shall be due under this license agreement on or before the 5th day of each month. For the previous month's net profit amount, Apex shall send a net profit report summary each month along with payout and will alert licensor ahead of time in good faith if unexpected events have arisen that will affect on the current month net profit. So that is the, really key term in this entire agreement. The entire agreement isn't, that long, to be honest. There's a termination clause in here. Upon termination or natural expiration of the license, all license grants, rights, and authorizations granted to the licensee herein will immediately terminate. Pretty important. All amounts payable of any kind under this license agreement are immediately due and payable effective on the expiration date or early termination date. So in here, you don't want to misinterpret this. It says all license grants, rights, and authorizations granted to licensee herein will immediately terminate. So when we talk about grants and rights, authorizations, that means use of the software. It doesn't just mean payments. It means once this agreement ends, you're no longer supposed to use this software. That's what that means. Okay, so that's that at a very high level. So I went ahead and had ChatGPT summarize, the differences or the actual problem here. So let's actually take a look at the actual, complaint itself. Okay, let me zoom in on this here. So if you've never looked at a legal, document, this is what it looks like. Oh my God. Pause. Continuous scroll. Okay. All right. So first, let's go ahead and take a look at the filing. Okay, the complaint, right, that started this case, and then we'll go and look at the ChatGPT summarized version of this just to make it a little bit easier, right? But we can see Leo Riot as trustee and trust administrator on behalf of KSR Spendthrift Trust. So Leo Riot is, he's the person who went and made daytraders.com, which is an important kind of narrative in all this. So daytraders.com exists partly and because they have the software. I imagine that, Leo has designed and leveraged and was originally using this in Apex. And then, I'm assuming it's a he got in the business as well after they ended their business relationship. So, and then you have Apex Trader Funding listed as all the defendants, right? So the people running Apex, you got Daryl Martin and a few other people that apparently, run the company. Okay, so let's look at, this just defines who they are. Okay, so let's look at some of the core, agreement here. Mr. Martin is the founder and chief executive officer of CEO of Apex. QSC entered into a software license agreement with Apex on or about July 12th, 2024. This is very, very recent, by the way. The parties mutually signed the agreement and formed a valid and legally enforceable contract subject to the terms and conditions found within the four corners of the document. Exhibit A, software license agreement. The agreement was signed by Mr. Martin on behalf of Apex in his stated capacity of CEO. Sometime after December 2021, Mr. Martin formally stepped down. So I don't know if this is a typo because this is 2024. Maybe there was an amendment to this. I'll have to see if there's an amendment to this because that's already a difference in date. Okay, which is why I like to read these documents. Sometime after December 2021, I imagine this was July 2021. Sometime after December 2021, Mr. Martin informally stepped down from his position as CEO in favor of allowing Chief Operations Officer, CEO, Mr. Skelton, to assume operational control of Apex. Mr. Skelton has largely functioned as CEO of Apex along with Mr. Martin since that time. Therefore, upon information and belief, Mr. Martin Skelton has been a participant in and responsible for Apex's actions. Mr. Johnson. Okay, so they hired Mr. Johnson at some point, hired Mr. Johnson as advisor and chief of staff for Apex, despite Mr. Johnson having previously been barred from associating with any broker, dealer, or investment advisor by the Securities and Exchange Commission. See Anthony Todd Johnson. So I'll need to actually look into this. I didn't see this prior. I was skimming too fast. Upon information and belief, Mr. Johnson was hired with the express purpose of developing a relationship with Mr. Riot to gain access to QST's proprietary code. Mr. Johnson was excessively complimentary toward Mr. Riot, and he would casually mention that he knows the best programmers in the country come and assist Mr. Riot, but they need access to the code. Defendants hired Mr. Worth as Chief Technology Officer on May 15th, 2024, based on phone conversations in which Mr. Martin told Mr. Riot he found the most experienced programmer to take over the IT department after Mr. Riot's departure. Upon information and belief, Mr. Worth was responsible for reverse engineering QST's proprietary software. Okay, so basically they're saying after they terminated the relationship with Leo, this amazing engineer started reverse engineering the software. So here's why I want to talk about the case. I have a software engineering background. How hard is it to reverse engineer something? This is really what they're going to have to prove in court. And is it possible to reverse engineer something? Okay, depending on what the code is written in, like what language it's written in, reverse engineer can mean a lot of things. Also, I don't know what this software, it doesn't really matter what it did, to be honest, okay? But what proprietary software could be so special that is running Apex's business, right? Maybe it's just for calculating trailing drawdown and things like that in real time. Not that hard to do. In my opinion, you could bang that out in ChatGPT. I'm sure most of the code is dealing with this stuff at scale, whatever. Interestingly enough, Apex had a ton of reliability issues over the summer as well. So was it that good? I don't know. Nonetheless, okay. And again, I'm just saying how I see it, guys. I'm not on one side or the other. I think this is just really, really interesting and fun for me to do. Okay, so anyways, that's what they're alleging. The subject of the agreement is funding program automation engine developed by QST. QST spent a considerable amount of time, money, and effort creating and refining the software. QST owns multiple copyright versions of the software, including registration, blah, 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 blah. So they have a bunch of software to automate, you know, I guess account provisioning and things like that. Which again, I think is funny because a lot of reliability issues. Anyways, the agreement contains extensive language regarding trade secret protection and copyright base, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff in here, more about it. It mentions the fees. Okay, for the month of July 2024, following the parties' execution of the agreement on July 12th, Apex reported a net profit for the remainder of July of $13 million and some change. If these numbers were correct, per the terms of the agreement, QST was entitled to payment in the amount of at least $4.3 million on August 5th. However, defendants failed to fulfill their obligations on the agreement by not providing the appropriate monthly payment. Okay, for the month of August 2024, Apex reported a net profit of $17 million. These numbers are correct. Per the terms of the agreement, QST was entitled to a payment of at least $5.6 million. However, defendants failed to fulfill their obligations on the agreement by not providing the appropriate monthly payment. For the month of September 24, Apex reported a net profit, $9.2 million. Okay. On September 27th, 2024, QST notified Apex Miss Martin of these missed payments and demanded immediate payment with the accrued interest per the late payment terms in Section 6. Defendants nonetheless took no action to resolve the delinquency. Therefore, on October 28, 2024, QST gave Apex Miss Martin note that the Apex license was revoked and the agreement was terminated. While QST terminated the agreement on October 18, 2024, QST still owed its license fee for the month of October prior to the termination date. So, if these numbers were correct, per the terms of the agreement, is entitled to payment in the amount of at least $5.1 million on the date of termination. However, they failed to do it. So basically, summarizing at this point and just reading it, according to, again, this is what they're saying, Apex owes them a couple $1 million out of net profits, which I don't know what their accounting is. Okay, this is all on paper money, by the way. And for those of you guys who are like, no, it's just net profits. Nothing's ever that simple. We don't know if that's like net or what other liabilities they might have in their business, okay? But if it is net profits, I mean, they should have the cash to pay it just fine. Who knows though? Literally, who knows? Depends on how they run accounting in their business. When Mr. Wright developed the software, he added the label prefix ALRS that would appear in a website URL when the software is being used on a website. On December 16th, Mr. Wright became aware of a website using several components of the software on multiple pages and in multiple ways as indicated by the ALRS prefix and the respective subpage URLs. This means not only have defendants continued the software after plaintiff terminated the agreement, they have also distributed it. In addition to failing to pay as promised, defendants breached their duty under the agreement by continuing to use the software, misappropriating QST's trade secrets, and infringing on its copyright registrations. Okay, so we can look at let's look at the ChatGPT summary. It's gonna be very similar. Essentially, they're saying they breached a contract. Makes sense. There's a misuse of intellectual property. If they resold the changed software and were too lazy to actually update the URLs, again, that to me is just like gross negligence. Like, and I'm not saying that they did, this is all alleged, but if you're gonna be a scam artist, you have to be smart about it. Okay, updating URL or checking for that is like super simple to do. So that's just like a huge oversight on their side if they were actually trying to get away with that, if that's what happened, okay? Trade secret theft. QST claims Apex misappropriated its trade secrets, including non-public components of the software, violating federal. These are legal terms, okay? Again, for what the software does, I don't think it's that complicated. I used to work on enterprise software. There's like very classic enterprise software stuff. But it's besides the point. The point is that the software was core to the business and they used it and there was a profitable business and there was a legal agreement to pay. So it doesn't really matter how complicated it was or wasn't, to be honest. I think it's funny thinking about it. Permanent injunctive relief to stop Apex's use of the software and trade secrets, recovery of damages. Okay, so here are my quick thoughts. We can stop the recording now. Based off of all this, here's what I think top to bottom. First and foremost, if they're still leveraging this today and they lose the case, they're gonna be in a bind because if they're leveraging the software to like run their core back into their business, it's like, imagine every time you buy an account, it needs to get provisioned. Okay, when you pass an account, there's the agreements that go out, right? You pass the account and it's like, hey, you succeeded, you need to sign the agreement, and then it gets added to the other page and then you have to pay the fee, right? There's all these little steps that it go, and then it automatically will provision you a new account. There's a tracking of that. There's a tracking of how many accounts you have. Okay, all of those little steps probably relate to the software. So if they have to like rip that out and replace it, ugh. 2, if they resold it, I mean, both could really, really kill Apex's business, okay? 1, I don't know if they're suing for damages or just missed payments. So there's accrued interest fees, but if you took it, resold the software, they're gonna be owed, right? Leo would be owed all the profit as well as like whatever damages, etc., right? I don't know the full legality of all this, but in my mind, that would be that's like the bare minimum even. It's like every single dollar that you profited off of reselling the software that I made. Again, not that I made, but I jumped ahead from talking to an example. But if I made a piece of software and I let you use it and we had an agreement and then you're like, oh, cool, I'm gonna resell it to somebody else. Well, there should be an agreement, right? And a lot of people white label software. That's the thing. Like a lot of big companies do this. They will resell software, but there's an agreement with me I get a percentage of it, right? So basically you're just a seller of my software. But if they're not operating in that capacity and they're acting like it's their software, that's a big no-no. The other thing, so the line about hiring somebody who's not allowed to work at any broker dealer or anything like that, doesn't look good when you bring people into the space who have been banned for whatever reason. I'll have to do some more research to figure out why, I believe it was Mr. Johnson, is not allowed to work at any broker dealers, okay? For reference, there could be a lot of reasons why this is the case. I have no idea. I have to go and look at it. I didn't have that prep for this video, so I don't want to misspeak. I used to work at a retail brokerage, okay? I've told the story so many times, but I got my Series 7, 66. Broker dealers are really specific around stuff you can and can't do. It doesn't mean that you have to do something crazy illegal to break the law. It could be something small that bars you from participation. It could be something big. But if you just break the rules, that's it, okay? So it could be all types of things for why that happened. But lastly, so what do I think? How do I think this is gonna go? Based off of what I've seen and just looking at the license agreement, and if we just take Leo at his word, because again, we're reading the complaint, right, filed, the list of events according to the legal filing. Okay, that doesn't mean that's what happened. And this is really, really important. I feel like the bar for critical thinking is really, really low on the internet. So I gotta have to go on this little tangent. Just because that's what the document says, and that's what I read, and it says that those are the events that happened and that's the order that they happened in, doesn't mean that that is the case. That's why they're going to court. They're going to court to prove it, to prove if that happened and to work it out. So I want to give that foundation. It's so important when you're looking at this case or any other case to realize that the whole process of going to court is to see if it happens. You probably know of big court cases where despite everything that happened, somebody unexpectedly won or unexpectedly lost. And that's because you have to have evidence. That's the beautiful thing about our country is you have to have evidence. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty. That's the first thing. The second thing, if these events happen in the way that they occurred or in the way that they were listed in this document, I don't see how Apex is gonna win this case. I'm not an expert on intellectual property law or any of these things. Okay, I have a background in enterprise software though, software sales, and as a software engineer though. So I know a bit about licensing. I know that these agreements, I mean, you guys can go and get it. They're very straightforward. I'll see if I can list them in the video. I think that's allowed. I'll list them, but it was pretty cut and dry. 33% net profit. They didn't pay, they kept using the software, and the fact that the prefix was in the URLs. I can't see of any reason why they would use similar URLs unless that's just a random URL, okay? It's also such an easy thing to change too. It's like a quick 2-minute, any intern could go in and change that if they were really trying to get away with stealing software, okay? Reverse engineering software is the last thing. I didn't fully break down reverse engineering software. Is it possible to reverse engineer software? Not really, unless you can unpackage it. It really depends on how it was packaged, how well you can reverse engineer it. Again, for the things that their software is doing, it's just a lot of enterprisey automation and stuff like that, which is really important and useful if you're starting a prop firm. If you want to start a prop firm, there's all these things you got to do. People have to be able to pay. You need payment flows. You need backup payment flows, account provisioning. You got to connect all these brokers, being able to deprovision accounts, add multiple accounts, all of these things that need to go on, tracking P&Ls, performance tracking, making sure you're tracking things in real time according to all the rules. Okay, a lot of stuff that a lot of people could do, but it is cumulatively a lot of work, okay? Reverse engineering that, I think it was more so about seeing how it worked and more so about keeping it working after you've been cut off. It's can we get it to do what we need it to do even though we're not supposed to be using it and somebody turned it off? Can we turn the engine back on? Probably that's more so of what the reverse engineering was. On the outside looking in, I don't think that there's a lot of technical know-how. Ooh, that's a rough line. In terms of like engineering capabilities and things like that on the backside of the house at Apex. So they're probably not gonna like me saying that. They see this video. As a software engineer, okay, my background is working on, like banking systems, distributed systems, software that move money around, things in the cloud, like cloud native, very ephemeral systems, things like that, okay? Exceptionally more complicated than what they could possibly ever be working on. So that's what I think. If you like this video, hit like. If you believe in Apex, you still wanna get another account, use my code FORCETrading. Check out daytraders.com. I've got my affiliate link down there. Maybe get one on each side, see who wins. I'm kidding, guys. Yeah, obviously, okay, I'll say this. If they lose and it finds out that they did engage in these bad business practices, I will discontinue my affiliate relationship with them. I just have to out of principle, but also on principle. I'm a very cut and dry principled person, guys. And this is why, like, despite all the crap that people say, like, unless I see actual proof around them, like not giving you payouts or whatever, like I've always defended Apex because they've paid out every single person that I've seen, and then people will say like, oh, they didn't pay me out, and then they send me the trade logs, and it's like they broke like 3 rules, obviously. That's why I'm very cut and dry about it, okay? I'm a trader, okay? I don't give a shit about whatever you feel. And most people, from what I see, are very, very emotional about these companies, and that's because they haven't made money any other way. Just trade, okay? The money will come if you just do the right things. If you take the long road, guys, if you keep your head held high, live your life with principle, things will always go in your favor. I promise you that they will. I promise you. One of the benefits of being where I am in life right now is that I know that that's true. I absolutely know that it's true. People love to drag you down to the level. They love to drag you down into the mud, okay? And you got to ask yourself, why am I arguing? Why am I bickering? Why am I trying to engage with people that, I have no desire to be around, okay? So don't let people drag you down to the level, whether it's in trading or otherwise. And just use these prop firms and these tools for what they are, right? They're ways to get liquidity to fund your own account. That should be the goal for each and every one of you, is to fund your own account and become a real trader. My name is Forrest. I invest in stuff. See you in the next video. Peace.